Can I just say, I'm quoting Jonathan Chait, who has a different opinion, and he writes about it in New York Magazine, and I think there is some truth to this, which is liberals suffer from an earnest tendency to place inflated hopes in the power of truth-speaking journalists to solve our political dilemmas. And he points to Candy Crowley in the 2012 debates, who fact-checked and was widely seen as being on the side of the liberal media or somehow a shill for the Obama campaign and not actually a journalist doing her job. And I think that in this moment in particular, where, you know, there is this narrative that the media is, the mainstream liberal media is out to get conservative candidates, I mean, is there not a sort of a hope of course correction on the part of a lot of, well, liberals that the media can somehow solve this problem and reconcile it?
You know, actually, I would be interested to see if we find, given the rise of the alt-right, because the reason that Candy got nailed was because she was a woman, right? Like that was gender.
Say that again. The reason Candy got nailed is because
she was a woman, right? Like it was gender bias, right? Like 100%. I don't think she did that. But I think it'd be interesting to see if we see conservatives try to raise questions, especially if Lester raises objections or fact checks on anything involving Black Lives Matter or the police, if those questions come up because he's black. That would be interesting, but I think he's not. It's going to be harder for them to come at him, frankly, because of that, because they don't feel comfortable going at a man the way that they feel going at a woman. I think
they would never go against a black man who is president, for example.
Well,
right. There's that.
That's a very fair point. Very fair point.
But what do you think of that, Jim? That this is sort of the hope that somehow reality can be brought back into this campaign if just some, I mean, this goes to the larger criticism that the media sort of invented Donald Trump.
So I'll make first the meta point, then the debate point. I've been doing on the Atlantic site for the last 3 or 4 months now sort of a daily chronicle of things Donald Trump says that nobody in this position has ever said before, and that would have stopped any previous nominee. And it's clear to me this is not changing a single mind among his supporters. That's not my intention, but just to sort of document what's known about him. And similarly for Lester Holt, his job, I'm not saying he should do this because it will change opinions for the debate, but it's an important part of the journalistic role to say, you're saying X, last week you said Y, can you reconcile these two things? And not just, I think that Matt Lauer, when he sat there, what Trump was saying was against the Iraq War, that was a cautionary example that shouldn't be repeated.
Okay, so running on that, I guess I wonder whether the media is sort of implicated in this insofar as Donald Trump, if you're going to call him lies, has been lying from, he announced his candidacy June 16th of last year, right? And all of a sudden we're having a conversation about fact-checking. Why is that? Well,
because I think we allow this to happen as non-TV media anymore. We have been. The print media has been doing this. I mean, Andrew Kaczynski on our team has basically since day one, every day, his people and he have been writing multiple stories about crazy things that Donald Trump says that aren't true. Just every day. That's been his job for over a year. The Post has done a great job with this. You guys have done stuff on this. Like there are tons of examples, I think, of the broader media doing this. The problem is that for your voting public, they still get most of their media from television, and television networks have been garbage on this. They've been absolutely terrible. It is one of the most shameful things to watch. It's just been horrible to watch. Like they allow his. Corey Lewandowski is being paid by his damn campaign and he's on CNN every night talking about him. It's just like Baghdad Bob up there, like doing his own deal. It's out of control, right? That's nuts, right? And I think that's a shame that they're going to have to deal with, going forward.
Well, it remains to be seen whether the shame. We'll move on past that question. Jim, you again in this great piece have a really interesting. Contention. Well, not contention, but I'll quote it. You're right. When television began, advertisers learned that facts can get them in trouble, but hyperbole is safe. After decades of conditioning, the American public no longer looks for specific facts. So, is it consumer culture that has brought us to this point?
I think so. So this was something where I was quoting a guy who says, the FCC or the FTC, if you say this beer will allow you to fly to the moon, that's, that's not that, that's no trouble because nobody believes it. But if you say we'll make you 1 inch taller, you have to prove that. I think that the larger merger of entertainment and advertising culture on one side and news culture on the other. 20 years ago, I wrote this book called Breaking the News, which is sort of warning against this as a possible thing that might happen. Now, just take it for granted that somebody whose training is as a reality show star and whose signature moment to me is from World Wrestling when Donald Trump shaved Vince McMahon's head. I think that's sort of the symbol of selection. I think that it's just gone so far that advertising and everything else. Politics, at least on the Republican side this year, is entertainment, and we're dealing with the consequences.
I would just say, and I tweeted about this earlier, there have been nearly 700,000 minutes in this campaign. And I find it dismaying, possibly depressing, possibly like terrible that the next 90 minutes are going to matter so much. Because when we talk about hyperbole and the sort of circusification of American politics, not that I don't love being here with all of you guys and on the stage with you, but there have been a lot of moments that have mattered, that have been really substantive, and we haven't paid any attention.
Yeah, I agree with you, but like also, if you look back at 2012, my boss, Ben Smith, love Ben, by the way, decided 40 minutes into the first debate to call it for Romney and put a story out 40 minutes into the debate calling it for Romney. And he was right. Romney won that debate. I think that helped. That moment, though, was like when the American public started to focus on it. And certainly if you are an Obama supporter and if you were working on the campaign at the time, you looked at that and were like, holy crap, we're going to lose. And they turned around their entire campaign, I think, as a result. Like, he came back into that second debate and was much stronger. He was sort of the Obama of old that people remembered, that like had the soaring rhetoric and made everybody want to like love him. And I think that these are the points that matter. It sucks that like the last 2 years of hell don't matter to anybody but us that went through it, right?
You don't know what we've been through.
But I mean, this is the moment that everyone gets.
If this makes you feel any better for Ben calling that 40 minutes in, 2 weeks before that, I had a big story in the Atlantic saying Obama would lose the first debate because incumbent presidents. So the Atlantic and BuzzFeed were as one on this, and they came back. And so this
very good about that decision.
Will really matter tonight, and there'll be another one. But I do think this is more important than a comparable debate in a while because Trump and Hillary Clinton are so different in every way, starting with gender.
Let me ask you, because there's been I won't say a mea culpa, but there's so much attention on this. There's been so much hand-wringing by the media about the media. Do you think there will be the same level of sort of, for lack of a better term, glibness during the debate, after the debate, calling it for one person or another, Jim?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, okay, let me ask you guys a historic question, because I think a lot of people feel like we are at a point of no return. This isn't, and certainly in terms of technology, we haven't been here, and sort of media, but in terms of candidates, do you think that there is a comparable period in American history?
I'll give you two of my meta theories in one. One is that basically everything is going well for the United States now except national politics. Deb here and I have been traveling around the country for a couple of years. City by city you find reinvention going on, people paying attention to schools. Our national politics they're not the worst ever because there was the Civil War.
Right.
But they are.
There was that.
So I think that this is a really troubling time for national politics, and there has never been somebody like Donald Trump who's gotten this close to the presidency, with somebody with no experience in public life, with no temperamental control. So I think it's a serious issue. It's
unprecedented, you think?
But the part of the country that I'm in is a lot of very angry people, and it's weird. Like, they can be well off, right? Or, relatively speaking. I'm not talking about super poor people, but well off, middle class, lower middle class people that are not struggling to pay their bills day to day necessarily, but they don't have a whole lot. Even if the recovery is affecting them, they don't see it, and they look at their politicians and they see a bunch of corrupt bastards that they don't trust, that have lied to them for generations, and they hate them, and they hate politics, and they want someone to come in and basically light the building on fire and like start over. And that leads to Trump, and then Trump uses that hatred, and it's very easy for him to target Mexicans or to target Muslims or something like that, and gets them spun up even more and more and more. And that, to me, as an entire country, probably not since the 1940s, late 1940s, early 1950s, as the civil rights movement was sort of picking up, and we saw massive amounts of lynch mobs in this country. I don't think we've been as bad as we've been since then.
So this is for discussion later on, but my impression is from Western Kansas, from South Dakota, from Mississippi, that people feel some hope about their immediate area.
Yeah.
They think there was a wonderful story after the Republican convention that said GOP delegates think economy is going to hell except where they live. Which is sort of I think the story this time, and Trump is gifted at whipping this up, especially with a racial angle.
I guess we have only a few minutes left, and I know there's a robust bar scene back there, but maybe people can keep it down a little bit. I guess my question to you is there is there any chance there won't be a second debate? Could this be it?
We're dealing with Donald Trump, so anything is, you saw those caveats in my story, if there are debates, et cetera, so I'll assume.
So you think it's still a distinct possibility?
Anything this year is possible.
The only reason I don't think there's a possibility is because it would make him look like the biggest punk in America. If he was like, oh, I'm not going to go debate Hillary Clinton again, everybody would be like, what's wrong with you?
I think I tend to agree that he's bound by some amount of ego to do the next two.
But how about if he says, oh, I just whipped her so good, there's no point in doing this anymore. He did that at the end of the Republican debates.
Right.
I can see him not doing the third. I can see him doing it and be like, I did it twice.
At least one more. I think there's a looming question, John, to your point, about whether there will be any kind of general consensus, is there such a thing as bipartisan media consensus at this point, about who actually won this?
No. I
Consensus on this.
Right, we do have
I think
consensus.
as Trump has proven, though, even when he loses debates, he wins. So certainly, with people who like Donald Trump, he's definitely going to win. There's zero chance. He could light himself on fire on the stage, and they'd be like, "That man just won by lighting himself on fire. It's amazing."
Self-immolation.
And just a 5-second point, if what he's doing in a few minutes is different from anything he's ever done before in his life, because in the primaries there are a bunch of people, he could just pick them off one by one and then just stay silent when he didn't want to talk. So this is going to be different, but you're right, for his supporters, self-immolation would be, oh great, look at that.
Well, you could say for his adversaries, self-immolation would also be a book, but that's getting into the details. Okay, so we have just a few minutes for a quick break if anybody needs to make a dash to the men's or ladies' room before the cast of Hamilton performs live. Just kidding, that's not happening. But it is Hamilton live, so I had to make a joke. I do want to thank my compatriots, my fellow media commiserates, Jim and John, for joining us. And thank you to our underwriters for making tonight possible. We're sorry we said bad things about television media. And thank you to our audience for coming and participating and sharing in the goodwill or despair of this evening. We'll be back. Well, we won't be back, but Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton will be back in just a few minutes. So stay tuned. Thank you.